In this video, we're going to be talking about how to take input for Python, and we're actually going to be talking about how to take an input using fast I/O. So certain problems actually require you to take in a large amount of input, up to 100,000 numbers, and the problem with that is that it takes a long time to take in all those numbers. So what we usually do is use something called fast I/O, or fast input output. So the same thing happens in Python, where we can speed up the input process just a little faster so that we can pass our program. So the thing all we need to do is we just need to say this, import sys, and then all we need to say is input is equal to system or sys dot stdin dot read line. And that's all we really need to do. So whenever you use the input now, all you need to do is use the same thing. So for example, if we wanted to do this right here, this example, the numbers are on the different lines, we can say given n lines on separate, or n numbers given on separate lines, find their sum. Well, we can easily do that. We can just say n is equal to int of the input. And notice that I actually didn't change anything. So then all I need to do is create a sum variable. Then I'm going to say for I in range of n, take in the input. So for example, m is equal to int of the input, and then sum plus equals m. Oops. And then print sum. So let's run it. So we can see that we have 5, 1, 2, -1, 4, and then 6. And then we get a sum of 12, which is exactly what we wanted. Now what happens if the numbers are on the same line? Well, remember that Python works a little differently. And all we need to do is we need to say that the numbers that we get, so I'm going to say numbers, it's going to be an array this time. And I'm just going to say numbers is equal to, well, I'm going to say convert each of the numbers x for x in range, or for x in whatever, right? For example, in the input. So we're going to say input, and we're going to split it by spaces. So what we're saying is convert each of the x's into an integer for every x in the input split by a space. So then all we need to do is we can just run through this. So we can say for each num in numbers, sum plus equals num. Let's run it, see if it works. We should get 12, 1, 2, -1, 4, and then 6, and we get 12. The same exact thing happens here. We're going to take in two numbers here. And the thing with this one is it's a little different. So I'm just going to say x, y is equal to, and once again, you can create an array here and you can just say it's the int of the x for each x in the input. So input dot split by space. And in fact, let me just show you that this works. We can just run this, and let's say 5 and 5. We get 5 and 5 in return. So next, let's say, for example, we create a sum variable here. And we're going to say for every row in range of x, for example, that's the number of rows that we have. And maybe I should have named it a little better. For example, n and m. So for every row in n, right? So that's what we're saying. What we're going to do is we're going to take in the input for the row. So maybe I'll change this to an I. We're going to take in the row. So row sub I, for example, is equal to all the numbers casted into an integer for every number x in the input, dealt with a string of split with character space. And then how many times do we split it? Well, we're going to split it m-1 times. And that's just a little specification that you can add to make your code a little stronger, pretty much. And then all we need to do here is say for every j in row I, right? We can just say sum plus equals j. And that's all we need to do. So then we can print our sum here. So let's run this. Scroll down to the sample input. 5, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 0, 1, 3, -1, 6, 1, 23, 5, 1. So if I remember correctly, it's something like 100, yeah, 158. And that's exactly what we wanted. The next thing that we have is basically what happens if the string is on the full line and we wanted to take in the whole sentence. So given a sentence, print how many spaces there are. So that's really simple because basically input already takes in a whole sentence. So I'm going to say the string s is equal to input. And I'm going to say for every character in s, if c is equal to a space, right, I can create a count variable here. And I can say count plus equals 1. Finally, print out the count, and I'm done. So let's say, for example, hello, welcome to Doorway Education. We get 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces, and that's exactly the output that we had. The next one is what happens if I wanted to check, only the words. So given n words, count how many are exactly hello. So for example, in this one, we would have exactly 1 because this one is the only word that says hello. And notice that we're not counting any of the spaces. So just remember that. So first, let's take in the input for the integer n. And once again, it's all the same. And we're going to say, for example, or it doesn't really matter in this case, we have to assume that the input is actually correct. So what we can say, for example, or we actually don't have to, but we have to say this. So for all the words that we have, we're going to say, well, it's going to just be, it's just going to be the input dot split by a space n minus 1 times. And then I'm going to say for each word in words, well, what is it going to be? We're going to just say if word is equal to hello, then we can increase some counter by 1. So let's create a counter variable. And we are done. So let's take in the sample input here. So we have an integer 6, our sentence, and we see we get exactly 1 hello in return. So that's pretty much it for buffered reader or fast IO in Python. All we needed to change was these 2 lines here. We need to say import system, input is equal to sys.standardinput.readLine, and that's all we had to do. So that's pretty much it for fast IO in Python.